Welcome to Stage Dive, a podcast where we go deep on the art of live performance to help artists perform better on stage. I am your host, Jack Dawkins. I am a rapper, poet, and storyteller out of Boulder, Colorado. Our guest for today is my dear friend, BS. I connected to him through his workshops called Freestyle Fitness, which he delivers online through Zoom, as well as in person on occasion if you are lucky enough to catch one of those classes in New York City. He is an educator, he is a facilitator, he is a beatboxer, he is a rapper, he is oh so many things. He's also a Pisces. I love him to death, and I so enjoyed our conversation. I know that you will too, so please enjoy my talk with BS. Okay, first question. What is the most nervous you've ever been before a performance?
Ooh, what is the most nervous I have been before a performance? A performance that happened, or a performance that didn't happen?
I mean, and now I kind of want to know the answer to both, but yeah, it's like, and I guess like it's funny because the question is, when were you the most nervous, or like, what's the most nervous you've been? And it's really a setup of like, tell me about the context. Like, I'm sure you were nervous as shit in certain moments, but it's like, what about the moment inspired that nervousness in you as a performer?
Oh, for sure. So the first set I was supposed to ever perform, I was still in school. This is toward the like junior, senior year of university, and it's a Halloween party. I've been working really hard on these like bars and this whole thing, and like, but also trying to keep up school and everything else. And it was like an apartment, like a house party. And I thought I was more ready than I actually was. I was not as prepared as I thought I was. I thought just sitting here and combing over my lyrics and trying to memorize them would be the thing that prepares me. And then, like, go time, like, there was an issue with a bunch of it basically came down to this moment of, like, so do you do it with the bad equipment that's popping off and then try and wrangle this room full of 60, 70 people, having never done that shit before? And then, yeah, it was terrifying. And part of me wonders if walking away was the right decision or not. I mean, I don't think I would have put on the best performance. I think it honestly would have kicked my ass, which could have been a potentially great thing at the time. Yeah, my first like real set, my homie Niall, shout out to Niall Emerson, was throwing a party at a spot called Asterisk, Lake Johnson. It was like a DIY venue in Bushwick, when getting off the L at Montrose and walking toward the industrial section of Bushwick was still like a scary and dangerous thing. And I had my homies, Mitch Friedman and Funk Nasty, because another issue where like the equipment like failed and I couldn't play my beats. So my homie bassist and drummer were just like, we got you. And at that point, it was do or die. Like, you got to do this and you're going to go. And I don't think I gave the greatest performance. Like, I was, you know what I mean? It was just so much on the fly. The freestyle portions were probably better than the scripted portions. But my crowd work was on point. That was the one thing I got love for when I got off this little ass stage in this DIY space. It was the crowd work and the energy that folks like seemed to like really connect with. And at that point, my flows were hella sloppy. The bars were, you know what I mean? Like, I was very, 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 very rookie green. And I'm grateful for that opportunity and the homies that stepped in to make sure that I was supported and made it possible. But yeah, when that equipment went out again for this second, I was just, it was really hard not to be in full panic, and that shit made me incredibly nervous. And thanks to the homies, I was able to navigate it. And I can also say that my first set, I had two of the illest musicians in all of New York City backing me up. Like, that was really wild.
That's awesome. And like another like I think you use the term friend-tor, which is amazing. So like borrow, pocket, thank you. Like I had a friend-tor, and he was saying like people underestimate the value of open mics because all they see is like small crowd, not a lot of energy. You don't really get to control the room. And it's like, and that's exactly why they're so good. Mm-hmm. Like, guaranteed some of the equipment isn't going to work the way you want it to, almost by definition, right? Like, guaranteed some people do not want to fucking watch you. Like, it's all the shit you're going to encounter in the shows that do count. And these, like, they're free. Like, if anything, they give you a beer to show up, and like you get to feel how uncomfortable it is when shit doesn't go the way you want, and that you're not going to die. And that, like, if anything, whether it's crowd work or like something that like has been really fun for me is like, I'll go in with a set of a couple songs, but if I sneak in a little spoken word and people are like, wait, I didn't know you could do that. And I was like, yeah, of course, because you don't know who I am. That's the beauty of an open mic. You have no fucking idea who I am or how much work I put into this. Blank slate. And like, ooh, man, like if I let myself fall into delusions of grandeur when that may not be the case, right? Like, I what a fucking blessing to be able to walk into a room and have no one know who you are, and you can know how much work you've put in, and that you now get to create this moment of surprise and delight where people, even if they don't fuck with hip hop, even if they don't like what you're saying, it's very hard for people to not acknowledge when someone has put in work.
Yes.
You can tell. You can always tell when someone has genuinely invested themselves in the craft.
The years show themselves.
Yes.
The years show themselves. I feel very similarly about street performing. And then you also open yourself up to a potentially much more abrasive reaction, because at open mics, people still tend to be polite. But on the street, like,
true.
No
rules.
Yeah. And you said something really interesting to me about like just right now about like the fear, right? Like having this, like, you're not gonna die, and that's actually what it took me. Like I love rollerblading. Like even now, like in my mid-30s, I'm still pulling stunts and things that people tell me I can't do. Let's continue that trend in life, but I realized for me, like when I was young and really angry, and rollerblading was the first thing to save my life. Hip hop's the second. I used to get really pissed off, put my skates on, and like jump off roofs with my skates on. Like this was like a thing. I'd be super angry, and that little voice in my head that was like, "You might die." I'd be like, "Fuck it, I don't care." Like, and I would just send it. And it was kind of this idea of like, well, if I start second guessing myself right before I'm about to jump, then I'm absolutely gonna eat shit. So it's one of those things where it was like, you're just gonna go, and it's gonna work. And being so nervous for those. Like for the first one, this didn't click into my head. For the second one that actually happened, it was one of those things where like part of the things that got me over the nervousness of it was like, bro, you used to jump off roofs just because you were mad. You weren't afraid to die. Why are you afraid of this room full of strangers, familiars, whoever, this room full of people? Why is that something that inspires fear when we've already overcome a much higher level in terms of potential physical harm, all of those things, like. And it even then, it still took like repetition, reminding, just kind of coming back to that space and that mindset a little bit. Not so much to the point where it's like, I don't care if I die, because we're rapping in front of a group of people. I don't know. You got to do some real wild shit if you're gonna not walk out of that room. I don't know. But that was a huge thing for me to fall back on that previous experience and this other moment of, I don't want to say conquering, but navigating through fear and removing the obstacle of fear from what I ultimately wanted to achieve. And I mean, now it's better I'm not an angry teenager, and it's not just this like fuck it, like kind of thing. It's much more calculated and nuanced, and the years, right? There's years behind it now. Yeah. But that was such a huge thing, and I find myself sometimes even coming back to that now. And it doesn't need the same lean into it as it used to once upon a time. But just kind of like, oh yeah, bro, you remember you rolled off that ledge after Thanksgiving, that like 40-foot drop that if you would have messed up, you could have died, but you didn't. You did it first try. Yeah, this will be just fine.
Yeah, you'll be straight. Yeah, like this is another thing I've been thinking about that a lot lately. Like, I think, I don't know if it's social media. I don't know if it's like sign of the times. Like, we love binary. We love black and white. So like there's so much narrative around like death to fear, death to ego, like get that shit out of there. And it's like, so yes, like, but also 1B, like maybe just be in relationship to it rather than like trying to outright murder it. Cause like fear is healthy.
Yes.
Like, it is not good to have a completely irrational, deluded sense that like nothing can go wrong and everything is great. It's like, no, not really. Because like there are consequences over time. And whether that be like physical or material, or like, you know, if you treated every performance with no fear and you just got up there and did whatever the fuck you wanted and didn't care what the crowd thought and blah blah blah, like people are gonna not fuck with you. And like not from a place of resentment or hate, but just because it's like, this is not enjoyable. I
Yeah.
don't particularly want to watch you anymore. Like,
Yeah.
it's just not fun for us.
Yeah.
So like, can you feel that fear, not let it control you, not let it own you, but like the analogy someone gave me is like, a lot of people have fear driving the car, and that's fucking terrifying because like we've all been with a nervous driver and like that shit sucks. But you also don't want to kick fear out of the car, right? Throw them in the back seat. You know, it's like,
right. Change
throw
your
'em in the
relationship.
backseat.
Like modify your do what you can to try to modify your relationship with it, right? Because
Yes.
I think you're right. Trying to like eliminate it isn't realistic or probable, right? But being able to change how you dance with it, or to even like start dancing with it, so then you can like modify like the tempo and the speed and the step.
Yes.
I'm with you on that 100%.
Yeah.
100%.
You mentioned like crowd work was such a saving grace for that performance you had that made you so nervous. Like, I think that's something so many people struggle with. Like, where do you feel like your, whatever you want to call it, inclination toward, aptitude for, like your just ability to work with a crowd comes from?
Man, it doesn't operate in every facet of life all of the time, but there's this part of me that like this very shameless part that activates sometimes. And I mean, one of the most empowering feelings is to ask a room full of people to do something and they do it. You know, like it's such a wild thing, and it's something I've just learned to have like fun with. I mean, it goes into my facilitation too, especially like in person. On Zoom, it's a little bit more difficult because, you know, it's like sound signals and all that. But like in person, just finding different ways of redirecting people, bringing people back in. Like on a stage show, lately, what I've been trying to think is like, how can I involve the crowd without asking them? How can I build an on-ramp that is so organic feeling that they just start messing with it? I was really inspired. I was doing a corporate gig with Freestyle Love Supreme FLS Plus, and one of the other performers was John Batiste from the Colbert Show, right? And I watched him make this room of stuffy CEOs, predominantly white men. Like, not only did he get them to clap on beat, which is crazy, right? He not only did he get them to clap on beat, but he had them doing whatever he wanted without a single verbal instruction. He just would walk up, ah, and then point the mic at a section of the room. And then he'd just go, ah, go to a different section. By the second time, the whole room knew what to do. And whenever he went, it lasted just the right amount of time. Then he goes to the piano. Without a single whole room. If you're happy and you know, but like again, it's like he's just playing the piano. It's right. Just the chords and the melody, like that's it, and he leaves it for the clap, and that I like this is fairly recent, but it's one of those things where I was just like, ooh, that's the aim. That's the aim, to find ways of achieving those same goals. But my way, right? Like, I'm not John Batiste. I'm not a pianist. Like, you know what I mean? Like, but to find ways of incorporating the crowd without, because one of my biggest pet peeves was performers, rappers in particular. Rappers tend to do it more than any other genre that I've seen, is to try to yell at the crowd or bully the crowd and not meet the crowd where they're at, to try to get them to do something that you want them to do. And ultimately, you just end up Nobody likes to feel bullied or pressured or pressed into anything, right? Like, so for me, it was just like, you try it. Usually the first time, people are still trying to understand the instructions. You do it a second time just to see. If it stays the same or it goes down, then you walk away. If it starts to rise, you try it a third time, and then you go for the fourth, and then you leave it alone for at least 16 bars worth, if not longer. Like, I feel like it's like any button, you know what I mean? Like, after a certain point, you overdo it, it loses its effectiveness. Like, unless that whole crowd is bought tickets to see you already, in which case then you have way more leeway. You know what I mean? Like, they walked in willing and initiated, as opposed to having to introduce people and kind of bring them into your world and the experience that you're about to share. So, I mean, I don't know. I was a skate park kid. So I already used to like just yelling at people from, you know what I mean? I'm half Cuban. I'm loud. Like, I'm a New Yorker. I'm loud, you know, like it just always felt very natural to me to just try and get a whole group's worth of like a whole group of people's attention at once. And then from there, just like the game, like I would watch Ill Spoken, Corey James Gray at Freestyle Mondays and just see the way that he would engage with the crowd, like in between people at like the open mic or during the battle, and kind of like create this like home base moment, this kind of like galvanization or like melting pot of like individual energies becoming a collective energy. And then seeing how that would fuel not just the crowd, but the performers coming up, and how that would give this extra like charge to whatever battery one had on their back, you know? And I think existing outside, like you mentioned binaries earlier, and like, I mean, we live in a world of continuums and spectrums, you know, people like binaries because labels, and it's easier to categorize, and it feels safer to have something organized than to look at it as this like free floating, potentially perpetual thing. Yes. It's safe. For a lot of people, it feels safer. Yes. So for me, it's like looking at it as like, just how many different ways can I reinvent this thing? Or if there a particular way for like especially if I'm improvising, I pull from whatever feels right in the moment usually. But like if there's a song, right, it's a little bit more rehearsed, and there's like a few moments and like trying to give people that direction, testing it out. Does it work? You know, trying it out for a few different rooms and being like, okay, this resonates, or no, this doesn't. Accidentally doing one thing different and realizing that was like the little quarter turn that you needed in the technique to make it really pop off. Man, it's a really long answer. I'm not even sure I answered your question.
No, you 100% did. There's so many jumping off points, right? Like, I think, so there's the foundation of the, like, you are Cuban, you're from New York, like operating at a high volume, not difficult. There are a lot of people from a lot of places where it's like, ooh, like, I don't want to draw attention to myself. Like, that shit doesn't exist in New York because you can be as loud as you want. Someone is louder. There's always someone creating more attention for themselves than you are, almost regardless of what you do.
I mean, the baseline level of city noise is louder than most people.
100%. I can hear it right now, as a matter of fact. Then there's like, there's facilitation, which is the idea around like, and I think what I would say at the risk of projection, like, so what John Baptiste did is like the double black diamond expert version of like, I can invite you in, but because I do it in a way where it is not demanding, where I am not saying you must respect my structure, but I am literally like, let's get nerdy. Like, it's almost like diffusion, right? You create a space and the energy flows into it. There is no pulling. Yes, it's an invitation. Exactly. That all makes good sense. I think the other piece that you touched on a little bit, but I do think that is underserved, like when you talk about the way rappers do it, I do often wonder, it's like, what do you want? Like when you ask for these, right? Like just more noise,
ego.
Like it's easy to get loud.
It's ego. It
is for sure. And I guess like the part about that is sad to me is it's such a lost opportunity, right? Like, I think I've told you this story. Like I went to see Wale, earlier this year. Great. But like, Guap Dad 4000 was opening for him. No idea who it was. Be super honest with that name. I was like, okay, sure. But call yourself whatever the fuck you want, man. That's fine.
Let's see where this goes.
Let's see where this goes. And like, he was awesome. He put on an amazing set. But the most impressive thing that he did was that he used his crowd work through repetition. So he taught everyone the same phrase, which is, it's a check. So he would say, it's a, everyone would say check. And the first time he did it, No one said anything. Everyone's like, okay, it's a check. Sure. Whatever the fuck you say, man. Great. Then he did a couple songs and like his energy was great and people enjoyed it. Song ends. He said, it's a. Now you hear a few more. It's a check. It's a check. It's a check. He tells a little story. It's like, the reason I do that is because earlier in my career, like I was thinking about these things. And so that for me, that's why that phrase is so important. Third and fourth song comes up. Now he's doing it after that. Now like the crowd is really into it. Like everyone is waiting for him to do it, right? By the end of his fucking set, the entire room is like, you're goddamn right, it's a check. And like they're going to I'm going to remember that shit forever. And like,
and I wonder if these folks who yell and bully, I think that they forget that there's a long game. I think they forget there's a long game. And I think that it's a check is brilliant because, right, that can have so many meanings, right? It is literally a check. I am checking the crowd. How with me are you?
right.
Also, I just did something and I got paid.
It's a check.
It's a check. That's brilliant. Shout out to Guapdad 4000, who I've heard of but never heard. And it's a check.
It's a check. It's a check. But yeah, like performances are containers, right? It's like there's a set amount of time where there's a specific energetic dynamic between you as performer and anyone you are with while you're performing and the crowd. And it's a conversation. And so the question is, what is the nature of the conversation? Who is enjoying the conversation? What can you do to elevate and make the conversation more memorable? And like that is it's such a fucking beautiful inquiry. And I feel so sad when I feel like people are having a conversation that frankly no one wants to have. And it's just like, that's why it's like, that's why the set doesn't go great. That's why people don't fuck with you, or that's why you're not getting the response you want. And to be clear, like I wish nothing but infinite screaming fans for anyone brave enough to get on stage and perform an original song or a cover. Fuck it. Like anyone who's willing to get up there and give their energy for the sake of performance, for the sake of entertainment. Like, yeah, of course I want you to win.
Yeah.
And like, it is not enough to just have a song. It is not enough to be loud. It is not enough to jump. Like the bar is higher.
Yep. I agree. Unless you are a mainstream radio artist, like, and again, like, right, when you have the whole room, or at least like 90%, 85-90% of the room is there for you specifically. Like, I don't think it, and again, I think we probably think similarly on this. Like, even those folks, like, if you work the crowd in like a cool way, I'm gonna like you even more. But if you don't, I like your song so much that like I kind of don't care.
Yeah.
Like, just please don't rap over your verse vocals. Yeah. Like, please don't do that. Although I understand that with some songs on some systems, especially if the low end is like insane, to like be able to like be understood, I have begrudgingly recently learned and accepted, and I've not participated, but like that some joints, like when I was at Baby No Money and Young Gravy, like the projection art, occasional lyrics, like illustrations and like pictures, and that like are all themed and linked with whatever song was happening. And it was really interesting to me because I was like, all right, this is like a more of a like youth-centered movement right now, and a lot of performance acts now, like, just, it's like karaoke, they just rap over their vocals. And it was interesting to see because they mostly didn't, but there were a few songs that they did, and I was just trying to find the common thread. Like, why did you decide to? Because it was like maybe 3-4 times tops, but it felt very intentionally why those 4 songs, right. And what I walked away with in my head, and maybe I'm wrong, but it was like the low end, like just the way the production was. There was so much emphasis on the bass and the low end that I feel like the vocals might, at least on a, like, this is Terminal 5, so this is like a 3,000 person venue. It's a big venue. Like, on a system like that, your voice might get washed out. For sure. Like, unless you're screaming, which the song, like, these are irreverent party rap songs. These are fun. Like, that goes against the grain of the energy and the message and what people ultimately came for.
Right. Right. Yeah. I think like I love that you brought this up because it's another binary, right? Like I want to say like you should never, ever, 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 ever rap over your own vocal. It's like it is the bare minimum as a performer for you to just say the fucking words that you wrote. Like let's start there
Yeah.
and see where we can go.
Chorus, I'll give it to you. I'll give it
For
to
sure.
you. I'll give it to you. But
yeah,
the
but
verses,
your
no.
verse, yeah. Like the other thing I get curious about, and again, like this is something that like maybe I'll start to play with at some point, is like it's one thing if you're rapping over your vocals as if you're performing, which everyone knows you're not, because they can also hear the backing track. So it's like, there's not like an inside joke here. It's just confusing. If, however, like you were getting the entire crowd to do the same choreography, and so rather than worrying about your lyrics, all you're doing is leading a group of people and you're super present in doing that. Okay, cool. Now I understand why we're in this dance and why we're doing that.
So something I found fascinating about that same show is there are a few songs, like, so Baby No Money, Young Gravy have a lot of collaboration stuff. The song that most people would probably know Baby No Money for the most is Edamame. And it's a collab with this guy, Rich Brian. Sorry if I got your name wrong. But so he's not there for the show, right? But like they're like trading eights, like the whole song. And what I was fascinated by is he left his vocals in and then did crowd work while the guest who was not present's vocals were on, which was also really interesting because then one of their closing songs, the song C'est La Vie, which is Young Gravy, Baby No Money, and Rich Brian, right? We still have this missing element. And it was that they went back to the same technique. When his vocals were on, they would do crowd, like work the crowd physically, like call response, like, and it was really, really interesting to see. I'd never seen anybody do it like that before. And I thought that was really dope. I've seen rappers be like, this is my feature from big name, whatever. I'm gonna just let the verse play, which I'm like, okay, fine. You know what I mean? You got Method Man on your song. I'm not mad at you. Like, you know, that's like a way to do it. Sure. Like, right. And especially if it's like a clout thing, but like, again, these fans already all know who these people are and like and all of that, so it was just really interesting to see that technique. I've never seen anybody work it like that. It was a cool, like, you know, back pocket mental note, like, oh, that's a thing you can do. Oh, cool. Like, yo, let's stay learning, forever learning.
Yes. Yeah. And like there's so much to learn, and there's so many different approaches, right? And it's like that's the fucking beauty of it. There's so many different tools and resources you have within every song, between every song, and so like that is like springboard for my next question. When you build a set list, what's your process? How do you do that?
I try to give it like a little bit of an arc, like at least an emotional arc, and something that I've tried to be mindful of. There's it's a Trevor Noah documentary. I'm blanking on the name of it, but he's, you know, running around doing these comedy bits, and he has this comedy tour, and he's talking to one of the other comedians, and he's like, hey, the reason your set's not landing is you're opening with this raunchy sex joke. He goes, imagine that you go up to someone's parent and you go to shake your hand, and that's what you open with. He was like, it's not the joke. The joke isn't the problem. It's the sequencing and how he was like, you need to introduce yourself first. You need to give them a context. You need to invite them in and then build it to that, where then it's going to crush.
Right.
So making the opening accessible is something that I really, really, really think about. And then from there, trying to think of like the emotional arc. I am a very emotional person. I feel lots of feelings very intensely all the time, for better or for worse. And trying to like take myself, my what I think of my like emotionally amplified self, again, for better for worse. I don't say amplified is necessarily a good thing. It's just big, right? And then kind of try to like take it down a little bit, and then kind of see do the performances, and then from there like tweak the set lists. You know, I don't know. I for me to like feel like I got everything I want from a performance, there has to be at least a freestyle moment. I don't know. It just, I like my tightrope without a safety net. And a moment of that I find exhilarating, and the crowd will usually appreciate, especially if the rest of it is like more like composed, like written songs, like pieces. Yeah. But like, how is the crowd work sprinkled throughout? Like, do I have a thing where I can invite them in real early, real quick? Like, do I have a moment where, like, something I used to do like once upon a time, it was around the time Wolf of Wall Street came out. And there's that scene in Wolf of Wall Street where they're like beating their chest in this like kind of like almost like this is like rhythm. I used to make crowds do that, and I'd rap over them beating on their chest and stomping their feet, and like just find ways of like yeah, I'm here performing, and this is our shared experience. Like it's not just about me. Like the whole show isn't improv, so I can't say necessarily that they are a member of the performance. Like I feel like it would happen in like a fully improvised like context. Right. But it is a shared we are sharing the time, we are sharing the experience, and like I'm not here rapping in a vacuum, or at least that's not the goal. The goal is not to be rapping in a vacuum. So what mixture of things that light me up and bring me joy? Is there a song that people might come expecting to hear, in which case I should probably do it, or find a way to like do part of it if it's something that I feel like doesn't fit my flow as tightly as it used to. I have a song called Douchebag Aviators, and when I was pre-pandemic, performing, it was just one of those where I was like, man, I've been performing this song since like 2010, like, and that's great. It's a dope record. It slaps. Go on YouTube, Douchebag Aviators. I beat up a teddy bear. Shout out to Tommy Boy Records on that one. But like my DJ at the time, Rickman, shout out DJ Rickman. We were rehearsing, and he was just playing around, and then all of a sudden he sped up the beat, and I just caught the rhythm of it, and then I realized there's this verse that I wrote for this other song, the song "Look," which is features Jesse Abraham and Gift of Gab, rest in power, of Black Alicious, and like that verse, it's like faster, like. I'm one of the livest good vibe providers this side of Gotham. My problem poser, they simply posing, and that's a problem. I'm stepping on snails, Oregon Trail back to Crossy Road. You think your movements are so fast? Or no, you so gassed, but your movements are moving awful slow. Something like that. But like all of a sudden, I could do that verse in there, and it just broke up the song in a way that like just felt amazing to me. And when we would perform it like that, all of a sudden there's the whole crowd would be like, whoa! It'd be this like texture change. So I think of a lot of things in shape and texture, shape and texture. How many different textures can I use? Does it make sense to mash these textures or not? Is there something new that I'm super excited about? And then recognizing that like I'm modeling the energy that I want to receive when I'm on stage. Like most people want to give you what you want. They just need to know what it is and how to do it, and remembering that, through it. The long game. It's the whole set. It's not just the beginning. I said, when I say, oh God, like I'm already just like, like, yo, you're not a vice principal. Don't do it. Homie, don't do it. Like, you wouldn't want to be the vice principal, and you didn't like it when the vice principal did it to you. Don't perpetuate anything that you don't like happening to you. Like, so these are my like the things that I try to think about a lot. Or like in some cases, is there like an older song that I can find a different way to like present differently? Like I had a similar thing where I have a song Whiskey Monster from around the same era, and it's a record. It's like a really it's like a very slappy party record that was written from a very dark place. And I realized I had a friend just. And the friend just started strumming on the guitar, and I just started doing the song, but in like halftime. And all of a sudden, it feels like a blues song. And now I haven't had the pleasure of being able to like unleash this on a crowd yet, but just the kind of thing where it's just like, oh, you can change the framings of certain things and add these moments. Also, like being a part of a duo with a beatboxer, like through working with Gray Matter and Brain Space, like. There'd be moments where it's just like, okay, we need another song. It's like, all right, well, I have this song in my catalog. Okay, we're just going to do a beatbox remix of it. You know what I mean? Or, oh, I have this unreleased song that, present me knows is never going to see the light of day. At the time, I was very optimistic. But, like, it just became, okay, cool, that's a Brain Space song now. And when I perform it, it's with Gray on the beat. And it takes a different texture and, like, a different tone, Lately, questions I'm asking myself is like, I do a ton of beatboxing and improvising, and how can I make those things more, these other things that are very much a part of my daily life, how can I make that a part of a BS set now, right? Contemporarily. So like I'm looking at like incorporating my loop station, you know, I got an RC505 and have like moments where like I can build the beat with the crowd, take an inspiration, something, and then have this like on the spot, on the fly moment. And then also have my instrumentals programmed into it. Then I'm my own DJ and my own hype man, and I have the capability to show or flow and tell the improvised portions that I need to feel like fully satisfied. To feel like I got my rap climax at the end of my set, I have to do some improvisation. Otherwise, it'll still feel great, but I'll feel like I haven't finished. So, like, you know what I mean? Like, I heard somebody call it get your rap nut. All right. I mean, it's crass, it's coarse, it is what it is, and I think it accurately describes that feeling for me, and I think for some others.
But that's also part of how you make a performance great, right? It's like if there's no joy in it for you, like no matter how much people enjoy the content, like there's still the live performance is great because of the human element.
Yes.
Always. Even if it's a song you love, and even if like I've absolutely had the experience of like hearing a song live and being like, oh man, like the recorded version I actually kind of like better. But yes. I wouldn't trade the experience for having seen the person in their energy, in their element, enjoy if they are enjoying it. Yeah. Like I've also seen people on stage who do not look like they're having fun, and it's like the check or whatever, right? Like do it for whatever reason you want, but it like. Why? Like, why? There's so many other ways to make money where you don't have to be on stage having however many thousands of people stare at you, not having a good time. Like,
and why? I think sometimes too, some of the live like tweaks, like I've had moments like that where I listen to a particular song where on record, I wasn't feeling it as much, but then I see it live and there's just some aspect to it that just like clicks into place. And it's like, all of a sudden I understand the context. And now I understand the record, and now I appreciate the record. And it was like I had to see the body language attached. I had to see like the emphasis in certain places and be like, oh, that's what this is really about. That's what you're trying to achieve. And I didn't realize it. And I'm so down. You know, it is interesting to have that experience though, right? Like sometimes you like a song more after seeing it live. Sometimes you're like, okay, that was a great experience. I wouldn't trade that, right? But I'm going to keep going back to the record. Like, that's my jam. Like, it's interesting how those things kind of like French braid around each other.
Yeah. It's emotional resonance, right? Because like if I find a song in a moment where like I'm connected to a powerful experience, whether it be happy, sad, loving, et cetera, and when I hear that song, it connects me to that emotion. And there's like, that's why music is soul, right? It's like, that's why like it's so indispensable. But then you go to see the artist perform it, and for the artist, it was a completely different emotion. So their intonation is different. Their body language is different. The way they're relating to the lyrics is different. And it's this weird cognitive dissonance of like, oh, I love the experience you're having, and it's beautiful, and it's so cool to see you in that. But like, also, please don't take mine, because that song and that connection to it has been such a salve for heartbreak or for loneliness or for struggle or whatever it is, right? And so like you hope as a human you can have a heart wide enough and generous enough to say like yes to both.
Yes.
Of like, thank you for writing this, thank you for feeling the way you felt, and thank you for allowing me as a fan to have my own experience with your record and to keep it as my own in this other way, and to allow the fact that all of that is possible within one composition. Like, it's fucking magic on earth. Like, it's so beautiful.
It is really, really cool. It's a similar kind of magic. I've seen Slug of Atmosphere turn a sad song, and without changing the song, turning it into a party song based on like, yo, this is a really sad song, but this ain't a sad day. So we are going to party to this one. I'm going to need y'all to, if you know the lyrics, go ahead and yell them out. I'm going to need everybody to jump this whole time. And like at that point in the set, like all of that has been earned. Right. And so like the crowd is just like with it.
Yep.
And so I watch him do this. Another like artist I saw do something similar, Yellow Wolf, way back in the day, like, right, usually like the arc has like a flow to it. I watched him go straight from party banger to all of a sudden bring it all the way down, have the room still follow him, and then bring it all the way back up. And then Slug and Yellow Wolf are the only two performers I've ever seen pull that off. I'm not saying they're the only two who can, but they're the only two I've seen take these joints and really amplify a certain emotion in the moment, regardless of whether it was the emotion already kind of predetermined and amplified by the piece, by the record, right, or if it's just what they felt like in that moment. And I think that there is something really magical about that. And I think it does take a true master of performance and crowd work to be able to pull off such like whiplash dynamics.
When I went and saw Kendrick earlier this year, so his new record is not an upper. Like, it is not a super sunshine happy record. But what he ended up doing is he just bounced people, because he has all the songs to make the entire arena lose their fucking mind, and then he can pull you into these like deeper, darker pieces. And what was beautiful is how he has this massive stage that's like 4 stages and it's all lit up and there's dancers and blah 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 blah. When he would pull the energy in, it's one spotlight on him. And it's narrower and it's focused and it's his words, and you're just hearing these words. And then when it's ready for the energy to expand, lights, dancers, like the entire arena is moving, clapping, the cell phones. And like now you can't even see my arms. It's that fucking wide of just like the whole arena is filled. Wow. And it was just like an accordion, like back and forth. And like the most interesting thing about watching his performance, it was so emotionless. Because he was being such a technician. He was being so specific about like, no, I'm right here, right now, and you're right here with me right now. And now I'm going to let you go up, and now I'm pulling it back. And literally until like he was on the fucking platform going down underneath the stage to end the show, did he smile.
Wow.
The rest of the time, he is just fucking in the performance. And it's like
hyper-focused on the tension release.
So much so. And like, I mean, talk about like places you earn, right? It's like he can do whatever he wants. Yep. He can bring the energy anywhere he wants for as long as he wants with all of his music. And so he gets to make what must be a very intimidating choice of like, I have 30,000 people at my fingertips.
Yeah.
What do I want to do with that?
Yeah. And it's wild because, like, I've seen Kendrick Lamar perform a few times over the years. I was actually at his first show in New York. It was in Brooklyn at a venue called Southpaw that no longer exists. And this is probably around the time he might have just dropped Section 80. Like, it might have been before Section 80. And it was fascinating to me because, I mean, one, he ripped it. Like, it was a sold out show. Like, it was incredible. But there was a moment, and I'm sure he doesn't do anything. I mean, the other times I've seen him, he didn't do anything like this. But like he basically started doing rap karaoke and inviting the crowd. Like there was like Bombs Over Baghdad, and he was like doing Bombs Over Baghdad, like, but not, not pretending like it's his song, but like using it as a way of bringing this crowd together, doing a few like, what, this is where I come from, West Coast joints, and then doing like a couple like East Coast joints to be like, this is where I'm at, and then like kind of like with a little bit of this Outcast kind of bounce in the middle, and the whole thing was maybe like 3-4 minutes, and it was like a medley, like he chopped it all up. But that was always fascinating to me, and it's crazy to think about like the career trajectory that he's had, and how in this like more underground level, first show in New York, he's in Brooklyn, like the whole thing, and that this was like a part of the program. And it's interesting because I saw him later rock with like Ab Soul as his hype man at like Brooklyn Hip Hop Festival, and it was again different era for a few years later, very different. Saw him later, was it Good Kid, Mad City tour, To Pimp a Butterfly. I'm blanking, but he's performing with a band. Completely different kind of set than any of the previous ones that I had experienced. So it's really cool to hear you talk about this stadium experience. Because for me, it was like, okay, cool. Like venue, like I performed at Southpaw. You know what I mean? Like, then Brooklyn Hip Hop Festival, larger. The other one, Terminal 5, 3,000 person venue. And now we're here talking stadium. Like, and it's interesting to think about those evolutions and things that serve the context and which context and how. These are things I love these puzzle pieces. Oh my God. nerding out on this is such joy.
Best.
And it's amazing because there's so many ways to get there. There's so many ways to get there, and it's about finding what works for you and is natural for you, and then that's what's going to resonate the most with the crowd because it's organic. It's not forced. It's not. I mean, it's performative because you're performing, but it's not performative in the sense that you're being inauthentic.
Right.
I mean, if you're doing it right.
If you're doing it right, I think.
Or are you that good of an actor? Could happen.
True.
I don't know.
Could totally happen. I think like the big piece to it is like the puzzle is fun because the walls that we perceive are not really there.
Yeah.
We have a lot of structure that we're like, this is how sets work. It's like, nope, 100% no. Like you can fuck with this thing so many ways.
Yeah.
So many ways. Like this was something I hadn't seen before. Code of the Friend came to Colorado. Like great fucking show. Super fun to see him up there. Like he just played a song twice. Like he played the song Colorado and everyone lost their fucking mind. He let like everyone cheer for like 2 minutes straight. Then he started that shit again. And like no one was mad. Like not a soul was angry.
But that's why you rock with a DJ or a beatboxer. Because you have then the ability to make on the fly decisions and read the room, read the moment and adapt to it as opposed to being locked into a particular course. That like once you start, it's like, you know, you're buckled up and whatever happens. Well,
I think like I want to go back to something you were talking about earlier. I do think like, and this is true in hip hop in so many directions, because I feel like there's a school of thought that's like, make your own beats, produce your own shit, record your own vocals, learn to mix master, like, you know, be Russ, be the self-contained, you know, Jedi master. And then like, certainly for myself, I will say like, there's so many talented people who can do so many different things. And hip hop is ultimately about collaborating. And so like I bring an element to the table. My producer brings an element. The person who mixes and masters brings an element. The way it gets transmuted live is yet another way for that to be expressed. So like there's performance where you as an individual are the central nervous system, right? Like you're taking all the input, you're deciding where it goes, you're doing all those things. And that's one type of performance, which I think is like beautiful. But there's also then like a DJ, a beatboxer, a band where like you're actually just watching chemistry. Mm-hmm. And so like it's less about like how the crowd is interacting with the band necessarily and watching how the band enjoys each other or the beatbox or the DJ and how like that dynamic creates moments of magic and you as an audience really kind of get to be behind the curtain in a way and see what it looks like when people are collaborating. And again, like with all of these things, it's never that there's a right or wrong or a better or worse. It's knowing that you have these options and then setting the intention of what you want to create for the audience, for the room, for the moment, like even where you are in the fucking set, right? Like if you're opening, literally like you are first on stage, the first person they hear.
Oh yeah, we didn't even talk about that. That's a whole...
You have a different set of rules, right? Like it's a whole other thing. If you are right before the headliner, which means everyone has been standing there too fucking long. They don't want to get another drink until the headliner goes on. They're anxious and they're like, whatever. Cool. Like, don't be mad about that, but don't be an idiot. Like, be cognizant of the experience that these people are having. And again, shepherd them in to an experience that you are designing for them where they're at. Not like, this is my time. I'm opening for fucking whoever. This is my bit. Like, it's not. It's not because the audience isn't going to see you that way because that's not what they're thinking.
Right. And you know what I keep going back to this Baby No Money Young Gravy show. They had an opener, Terror Reed from the Bay Area.
Amazing.
But like a very wordy rapper, often like aggressive, not in like a, you know, it worked for him. Like his set was cool. Like the whole crowd is definitely not there to see him. But what I thought was very interesting is in the planning of this performance, because this is like I mentioned earlier, like the headliners are irreverent party rappers. Like there's more space, there's more repetition heavy. Like it's more of this, and I thought it was interesting that they set up the tension with the opener. And I thought about that, and I was like, wow, he has a job. Like, but I mean, obviously every opener has a job, but like his job. And I'm sure he's been in it enough years to realize it, is to orient the crowd and like almost like a slingshot, right? Words, content, information. Whoa! Part. T. Like. But you know what I mean? All of a sudden, I was shocked. I thought, honestly, I walked in being like, oh, I never heard of this person. The opener, I figured it would be something kind of vibrationally or thematically aligned, and I just figured they just wouldn't be as good at it. Instead, like, you had somebody who was like really dope, like, I mean, dope at working the crowd, the dope set, like he was cool, but in a different direction, and using that as like a springboard or slingshot back into the irreverent party rap, I thought was also fascinating. And I don't know, I'd maybe feel weird if I was put in that position myself. You know what I mean? Like, it's one of those things where he was like, y'all have been great. I was like, oh, bro, you say that every night. Like, one of those. Like, and he knows why he's there. He knows what he's doing. He knows what his job is. And I thought that was really interesting and different than a lot of sets I've seen where it's like, okay, the people on the tour are also on the label. Or like there's a more concrete affiliation. Which is interesting to me. So yeah, I was like, oh shit, juxtaposition is a thing, right? Like, the worst is if you're the performer, like, you've been to like more indie shows where like there's the headliner, but then there's the closer. That's the worst, bro. That's the worst. I feel like I've been in every single one of these positions. I've been in every single one of these positions in different contexts, but like, to be rocking with a beatboxer and go after the headliner that's a full band.
Oh my God.
Knitting Factory, Brooklyn. It's a big room, and if it's not filled, it feels like the empty space is about to swallow you whole. But you gotta stick to your guns, and you gotta rock it through, and you gotta treat it like, I am ready to pour love and energy into anyone willing to receive it here, and I don't care if that's one person, whatever, it doesn't matter. Like, we're gonna do this, and we're gonna see it through. Even though there's people leave, you know what I mean? You're watching people leave as you're doing your shit, and you gotta be unfazed. Like, you can be phased afterward, but like, while you're on there, there's no flinching, there's no crack in the armor. Like, you have to move through it, but it is like I don't know. I'm really glad you brought up like order within the night and set performance. Like, also, it's how long is your set, right? I believe that if you're not rocking with a full band, you shouldn't be over half hour tops. Half hour tops. It really should be, for your own sake, 15, 20.
Yeah.
Leave them wanting more. Hit it. Leave. Cash your check. Yeah. Like, again, unless you're like a Kendrick Lamar, Jay-Z, Beyonce, where like people have come for this whole experience. It is a curated experience. There's usually like, right, you mentioned dancers, pyrotech, like, it's a whole, like, there's a theatrical production element to the show, and those people also have catalogs that go back how many years, and like, people they have the content to fill the time,
right? And
it's been lauded, acclaimed. Like, there've been a lot of eyes on it, a lot of ears on it. So I think that does change things. I feel like everything we're talking about, once you ascend to a particular level, you could choose to ignore and probably still be okay for most of your career. Probably. Yep. Again, assuming that you maintain record sales, whatever else, like, you could probably get away with avoiding a lot of the things that we're talking about. And I think we already touched on this, but the things that we're discussing would help amplify any performance.
Well, and the question I have that I think is so fascinating is like, what you said is 100% true. Like, anyone who's, Billboard Top 50 doesn't have to do any of this shit, but what were they doing to get there? Like, Kendrick was playing Outkast records. He was doing East Coast, West Coast shit, right? Like, he was fucking with the format, like, because there's a long game, because you need people to remember. And like, I don't it's not that people are trying to skip, but people are just trying to emulate what they see at the top. And it's like the way the CEO walks through his day is not how even the CFO or the COO walks through the day. Is how the VP walks through his day. Is how the middle manager walks through his day. It's like there are levels.
Yes.
And like I think I never want to try and be like a pusher of toxic positivity, but if you can be in like closing after the headliner, if you can be in that shit and you can find gratitude and grace, not only for yourself, but for the people who are now like in the horrible position of having to try and be excited about you, even though you and they know like no one's here for you. No one's here for you. They're here for the headliner who's now done. And the venue is basically playing a game of like, can we get another $500 in alcohol sales by throwing one more person on stage because people are so turned up after the headliner that we'll squeeze a little more revenue out.
Yep.
Good for them. Their venue, that's their business. Cool.
Yep.
But like, can you, I was doing another interview with a really good friend named Oscar, who's a stand-up comedian. And like the story he told that was so beautiful is like he was going to audition to get a regular spot at a club and he had to follow for someone who just murdered an entire room. Murdered, like falling out of chairs, spilling drinks, like tears, the whole thing. And like, so headliner leaves, crowd reduces by about 80%. And like, so now the owner's in the back, Oscar's on stage, and there's like 6 people. What set do you give in that moment? And like, that will tell you a lot about who you are, about how you feel about what you're doing, and about how badly you want to keep going.
Mm-hmm.
And like it can, like those moments can birth stardom.
Yep.
And they can also end careers. Like
yes.
They can go either way.
But it's one of those things, like you mentioned the owner in the back, right? Like, okay, those 6 people. You never know what one person, who that one person, what's connected to that one person. Which is something that gets me going through those tougher situations. It's like you never know who is who, and how they might feel about what you do, and how they might be able to potentially support or help you if they felt so inclined. Like, right? Like you impress the owner, you get more gigs. You get better gigs.
Yes.
Like, or you get no gigs. Like, no gigs. But it is that I've heard a lot of people be like, even if it's 3 people, treat it like a stadium. Which, like, I find a little bit, not problematic, but, like, give all of the energy that you would for, like, 1 million people. Sure. But, like, we're just talking about, you can't do it like it's a stadium. Like, that comes with its own bag of tricks. It comes with its own, like, recommended actions or, like, expanded drop-down menu of options.
Right.
Yeah,
if there's 6 people, you should know everyone's name.
If
you're up there for 30 minutes, by the time you're done, if there are 6 people watching you, you better fucking know their names. Are you kidding me?
Yep.
Of course you should.
Yep. Those are also the 30-minute sets that are okay to make 20. Or 15.
As the case may be, yes, 100%. Like, there's another idea I wanted to float by you and just hear your thoughts on it. So, like, another thing I find myself doing, like, my career started in restaurants. I did that for 10 years. And so, like, spent a lot of time in my life thinking about the pacing of a meal, the structure of a meal, et cetera, et cetera. And like some of the restaurants I worked in had tasting menus, like long 3.5 hour dinners. And the question we always asked is like, we have to be at the table. It could have been anywhere between like 60 and 85 times. Every time you're going to replace a water glass, change silverware, deliver a dish, I got a question, wine, blah, 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 blah. Like you might have to interrupt someone's night 60 to 85 times. So to an extent, that's necessary because if you're serving 15 plates of food and blah, 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 you got to be there a lot. The question is, how do you make them as minimally invasive as possible? Or how do you make them less noticeable? And so same thing. It's like if you have a set list and the way you move through your set list is like, I do one song and then I stop. And then I do one song and then I stop. And then I do one song and then I stop. Like those stops start to feel like really herky jerky and the crowd like can't get any momentum in it. And so what are you doing with space between songs or with the number of songs you're doing in one stretch so that those stops, those interruptions either feel more minimal. That's a weird way to phrase that, but it's fine. Or do they feel like you have an intentional use for them so that people don't notice that you are taking a break. You are not actively performing a song in that space because you filled it with something different.
I mean, I think that there are a lot of, I try to calculate where those moments happen. I've definitely seen sets where like folks give all this exposition before every song, and I've seen it land and I've seen it absolutely not.
Yeah.
And I do think that there are certain joints where you can explain it. I've always been a bigger fan. Like, if you have the opportunity to show, then the impact from showing is almost always going to be better, heavier, more effective than telling. And sometimes you need to tell things, like, right? Like, I don't know. I had somebody tell me, like in my exposition for a set, I make sure to say the F word at least a couple times because, the motherfuckers in the back need to hear you say it and start, so they turn their heads and pay attention. I always thought that was a fascinating thing. I always did curse like a sailor in my regular all the time life, unless I'm like facilitating like a particular like workshop or something. It's like youth
right.
or something, you know what I mean? But I think it's the kind of, if you got a DJ, there's a moment to let the DJ rock. Like, you know what I mean? It's a moment to amplify somebody supporting you. Beatboxer, okay, cool. I'm gonna take this sip of water. You could do your solo right now. Like, having ways of not letting it come down unless you already decided that is a point where you want it to come down so that you can bring it back up. I like songs that go right into the others. I like having like a little bit, like a half-second moment, a few seconds for like reaction. Because you don't want to start going again while they're reacting, because then you're going to get drowned out by the crowd, which is, I mean, ultimately not a bad problem to have. But like, if you just pace it, right? Like, joke about like with the interruptions, if you can pace it, prepare for the reaction. If there is none, you're prepared for that already. You have someone supporting you, like a DJ or a beatboxer, or you're on your loop station and you're the one who's about to push that button to cue the next beat. Like, you have that opportunity to kind of move in between. Sometimes I just like to ask them how they're feeling. Like, I feel like it's letting people know that you care about how they feel can be a really powerful thing. And just like, yo, everybody okay out there? You drinking your water? Like, all right, cool. Don't forget to tip the bartender. All right, let's get it. Like, I don't know, have like certain moments, or sometimes when like you're not the headliner, right? Like, yo, who's excited? I've seen that. I feel like that's a really go-to. Like, it's almost like being like, where Brooklyn at in New York? You're guaranteed to get cheers. Where Brooklyn at? Ah! If you in New York, when you in doubt, you need the crowd to do something, and they ain't with you, ask where Brooklyn's at. Brooklyn's always in the building. Right? Like, similar thing. Like, who's excited to see headliner's name? And have those moments to kind of like, and then bring it back in. I think that's also like a clean way to end. You know what I mean? Like, yo, I'll be there with you in the crowd watching so and so.
Yeah.
Even if you're not.
Even if,
like,
even though you may not be.
Like, you're still like enjoying it from the green room or wherever. But I do think that like avoiding dead air is important.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll do that sometimes in between songs. I'll just start beatboxing, especially if I haven't shown them that I can do that yet. Like, it's usually like a cool like moment. I've done that before. Like, just kidding, wrong show. Like, just go boom right into the next thing. Like, yeah.
So fun. So let me switch gears on you again. So like, something you do that I think a lot of people would struggle to believe or define as like, you teach hip hop.
Yeah. Few different facets, forms, and yeah.
And like the whole art, right? Like, not like, you don't just teach rapping, like,
right.
You the whole shit.
Well, I don't teach people how to write graph. I don't teach people how to dance, and I don't teach people how to DJ. I would love to be able to do all of those things.
True.
But the sound making elements, beatbox, freestyle rap, songwriting, educational consultations, lesson plan, all of that gamut.
Yeah.
Words
so
and
like,
sounds, we about it.
Yeah. Oh, so good. So like, how did that come to be? How did that start?
The teaching?
Yeah. Like, how did freestyle fitness become?
So I've been an artist educator. I've been helping people rap since I was figuring out how to rap. I used to have like a home studio back in the day. It was like my first apartment out of university, and I've just meet people. Oh, I like rapping. I like this. Oh, you want to come over and rap? Like the mentality was basically collab or die. You know what I mean? Like, oh, cool, you're interested in this. I'm interested in this. Let's go. Like, I have a thing I can record you. Like, I'm not gonna mix it for you, but I'll send it to you when it's done. You know, like, and kind of bringing people on like that. I had a very formative experience earlier on in my journey where I was volunteering at a homeless shelter and working with youth at a homeless shelter and teaching them how to write bars, how to like compose a verse, what is a song, what is a chorus, how do we navigate those things. And so for me, like, I mean, even in the rollerblading, like I was at the skate park so much that they just offered me a job teaching people lessons, which turned into me doing like summer camps and like transferring skills, communicating things in a way that there's a skill transfer. So this is tutoring. These are all background things at play. So for me, I used to be a formal classroom teacher. I taught second grade, dual language, English and Spanish. So I have like a formal background. I have less formal background, like formal academic approaches, informal academic approaches, academicized like hip hop approaches, and pure cultural expressions, you know. And shortly after my stint as a teacher, shout out to all the teachers. Y'all do not get enough love and support, and certainly not enough pay. Like, shout out to the teachers. You are doing the most, and you are keeping our youth alive and well. And I appreciate you, and I salute you. It wasn't for me. But when I left that, I had a friend reach out to me, being like, hey, I'm working with this nonprofit. It's like hip hop education, cross section. I think you'd be perfect. I know you're teaching, so you might not have the time. Actually, about that, a whole bunch of time just opened up, you know. And so I was brought into this nonprofit, which then turned into working with a few different nonprofits and running programming in beatboxing, loop station, like song creation, freestyle rap, songwriting, working with youth, adults, folks with special needs, youth in the system, either incarcerated or going through the judicial process. I've worked with a lot of different kinds of populations, D7-5 schools, like the highest need of support financially and often in terms of accommodations for students. Like, it's where a lot of physical differences, cognitive differences, and combinations of those things, like those schools serve those populations. So I've had residencies in there, just basically running around New York, doing like hip hop educational, like MMA jujitsu, like just trying to like empower folks and share this outlet and this craft and this culture that has given me so much. It's, you know, saved my life. So for me, it's like I like that Freirean idea of like a problem poser, right? I am not this like traditional teacher, like gatekeeper of knowledge. Like, hell no. I am a hyper interested, hyper curious party looking to meet other hyper interested and hyper curious parties, or to inspire that curiosity and to just go on a journey and just see what happens. Like, what are the things that's what I love about a cipher, right? You're all standing, you're all eye to eye, everyone's equal in the cipher. And that's a mentality that's really, really important to me, you know. Bringing in skate mentality, right? If you're not falling, you're not learning. If you're not pushing yourself to try different things, you're probably not learning. You're staying in a comfortable, complacent place. I digress. This turned into just having some really dope formative experiences. I met up and linked up with a bunch of the homies in Freestyle Love Supreme. They were just starting Freestyle Love Supreme Academy. I was in the beta course of that, rocking out with my homie Gray Matter, who had just gone through a gnarly breakup and was like, will you please take this class with me? After a little convincing, like, sure, you know. And it was interesting, like the setting, like I just watched them cultivate this like beautiful climate of kindness. And I'd already had my own ways of kind of getting there, but it showed me a really, it just modeled a certain fine tuning. Because I'm running around like New York City schools with New York City kids. There's a certain degree of rough around the edges that is actually very beneficial. Like to just show folks that you're keeping it real and you're going to treat them like a human. in a context where they're not used to being treated that way and people front on them all the time. Like a lot of these, like very high need, again, whether it's financial, economic, or in terms of support. So just kind of like zeroing in on those things, and then recognizing that sometimes like for me, like skate tricks, I go past an obstacle and I can just see myself doing something on it. And for this, I just saw communities and rooms full of people where I was like, I think I know, like, it's a leap at the time. It's like, I think that I know how to reflect this dopeness that's already in you, that you're already displaying, that you're not fully aware of, how I can reflect that back at you and not build you. I'm not the one doing the building, but I am supporting you building yourself. And here as a resource, however that may be. And that's kind of how freestyle fitness came into be. It was like, I didn't have a space, because like with the nonprofits, like you are at the beck and whim of what does the school want? What does the site want? What does the nonprofit want? Am I being told are my objectives being informed by someone who's just pushing decimals behind a desk, who's never been at the site and never taught one of these classes or been in one of these classes in their life? Like for me to have a space, to have my own little sandbox where I could take my very non-linear life journey and experience and realize that like my experience is very different than most people's. I've been able to walk in between a few worlds at once and with authenticity in all of them, which is pretty rare. I feel like, right, we go to the binaries, black and white. You either here, you over there. My whole life is gray. I just keep going back and forth between the two, and it was many, many years before I realized that that's a superpower. So for me, it was like, how can I take this formal academic background? How can I take, at that point, my decade plus years of experience running around this, like the parks, the corners, the street performing, the venues, the duo work, the solo work, all of the things that I've been doing in all of these different classrooms. Okay, is it beatbox focused? Is it writing focused? Is it improv focused? Or a combination of these things? Am I there by myself? Do I have a co-facilitator? What are all of these different pieces? And I had to build a place for myself to be able to find the way to put them together in a way that makes sense, and to see if it resonated with people. And it did. Like, it's something that, like, it just made sense to me. And like, I don't know, I think of myself as often an odd duck. So what makes sense to me may not necessarily make sense to people at large. But I think I was blessed in that early on, what I started found or was met with the right people who saw my vision, felt my vision for it, and could see and feel the benefits of participating through it. So that's when freestyle fitness was like a monthly 3 or 4 hour adventure. Like first hour was beatbox warm up, optional. I believe that every MC should be able to beatbox well enough for another MC to drop a 16. You don't need to be an amazing beatboxer, but you should be able to hold a beat for 50 seconds so somebody else can get busy. Like, bang! You know what I mean? So this was like an encouraged thing. And then freestyle fitness kind of started out as like, all right, I'm going to throw as much weight at you and your bars as you could possibly take. I want you to leave this experience with words falling out of your nose, so that at the very end, when we just do this open cipher where there are no constraints, there's no added weight, there's no nothing, you're going to feel like you are like Barry Allen. You are sprinting without, like, you went from like trying to pull all this weight to all of a sudden it's released and now you're just running. So I tried to build it like that, like really as a workout. Like it's a cognitive workout. It's a cipher with a lesson plan that teaches life and language skills through the vehicle of freestyle rap, building community, enhancing outlets, like allowing a space for people to share as much of themselves as they feel willing to do, or that just happens in the moment. Concurrently in that space, he's also totally fine to go and grab a bunch of colors and just throw them at the wall and move them around and just see what happens, you know? Like, it's really, really dope to invest in ourselves and our own experience, our stories, our narrative. It's also really dope to just invent and grab a bunch of materials and just throw them at the wall and just see what happens. You know what I mean? Regardless of how much sense it makes or doesn't make. If you are expressing what's in your spirit, that you're gonna walk away from that experience feeling better. Like if people feel expressed, they're more likely to feel happy. More people feel happy, the world's a better place. Happy people typically don't do stupid fuck shit. Like, why would you fuck with your happiness, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So these are things that like made sense for my ADHD brain, and just kind of keeping it real with myself and kind of creating a thing that I wish I had access to, instead of having to like really like dig my heels in and like cut my teeth, which I'm very grateful for. The experience is the experience, the journey is the journey. But like, how can I give those same kind of playful, witty energy with an appropriate amount of grit, while being loving and open and accepting and letting people know and showing them that whoever they are and however they are that day when they walk in is enough. That's enough. You're here. You already won. Like, you came to the gym. That's the hardest part. That's the hardest part. So it's kind of breaking it down. And I think you've heard me say this before, but like, again, the gym, the fitness metaphor goes really far, right? A lot of people, like, you know, they try to do crazy shit and then they get upset because they can't do it. And it's like, yo, you don't walk in the gym and pick up the heaviest thing in the room in your first visit. That's how you throw your back out and get hurt. Right. Like, I see myself as more, again, it's like the problem poser, like this like trainer, kind of, because I built a structure, right? I built a circuit for folks to, like a jungle gym for folks to play on, that they can then interpret however they want and create activities and modes of engagement that you could walk in being an athletic freestyler and you'll be like, oh shit, like I was challenged and that was super fun. You could walk in and be like, how do I count bars? And still be able to participate and still have a good time and still feel challenged and pushed. You know, like, there's this expressive component. I think of that as like aerobics, right? Mm-hmm. Like, you have to get comfortable not knowing what's about to come out of your face and being ready to accept those. You know, freestyle can often be a truth serum, and not thinking about something and being like, I don't want to say it, I'm not going to say it, I'm not going to say it. Oh, it just came out of my face. Like, we all have mental clutter, and being comfortable with our mental clutter, being aware of our mental clutter, maybe even having the opportunity to clear some of it out, and having this sense of, I think of it as like you're in a field and you're running. It's cardio. You're running and you're naked. You're exposed. Everyone can see everything, right? There's a degree of stamina and comfort that you need to build in that area to ultimately feel comfortable and successful freestyling. And then I look at the other component, right? Like let's call it weightlifting, muscle isolation. Like, these are drills, these are techniques. Could be certain flow styles, could be rhyme patterns, rhyme schemes, punchlines. I mean, there are so many craft points and things to just zero in and nerd out on. And there's so many different ways of presenting these things. So like, I think of it as it's like a combination, like gym and dojo, you know, like it's except, like, I don't know, there's no membership fees, and I encourage folks to go and do all of the things. Like, essentially what we're doing is language MMA. You get comfortable enough expressing, the muscles doing the drills get strong enough to do the drills. Next thing you know, when you just start expressing, you're doing freestyle CrossFit. All of these things are happening at the same time with a degree of automaticity after enough practice hours. And then the trick then becomes creating an environment where practice isn't practice. You're hanging out with your friends. And this is what happens when you hang out with your friends. You get busy and you have fun and you support each other and you amplify one another and you invest your energies collectively. The individual energy becomes collective energy, which then amplifies everyone's energy and creates this large reservoir where we can all now, like, do more, have more of an impact, create, I think, you know, Green Lantern, create larger, more detailed, vivid constructs from our minds and communicate those to other humans. Yeah, bro. It's really fitness. You can train your brain like a muscle for a lot of things. And I've made a living off helping folks train their brains into becoming proficient at freestyle rap. Like, it's been a beautiful, amazing thing, and like a way of connecting with people, a way of seeing people connect with themselves, connect with others, Like it's been incredible to see. And then, you know, enter the pandemic and the Zoom era, like Freestyle Fitness became an online program. All of my sites closed. I ended up, you know, just kind of moving away from these nonprofits because the sites that they were serving and servicing closed. Like so for me, it became like, I realized that I had this thing that I was doing monthly for like 3 or 4 hours. And I was like, oh, I can subdivide this. Like, it doesn't need to be a 3 or 4 hour experience every time for people to still feel like they're getting what I want them to get from it, and hope, you know, and what they want to get from it. Right. So that kind of opened up this whole thing. Now we're online, so now we're global. So being able to bring in folks from Colorado, Florida, Kentucky, California, Berlin, London, Glasgow, and all of these folks in, so many different types of beautiful, amazing humans. Freestyle Fitness is a small mom and pop community, but we have the most vibrant folks. We have the most vibrant, kind-hearted, amazing humans. I'm so blessed and fortunate to have the Freestyle Fitness community, family, you know what I mean? My freestyle fam. Like, it's become an amazing thing. And to speak more on the connection point, right? Now we can go in person again. I've been doing in-persons in like parks and stuff, you know, outdoors. So like we're super, super safe, right. You know, but watching people who have been like know each other very intimately, just based on the nature of improvisation and the things that come out of us and the comfort in the space, you know, the safety in the space. I never say Freestyle Fitness is a safe space. If you need to say it's a safe space, then it's not a safe space. If that's what you need to tell people, no, it should feel that way. You shouldn't have to say it. So, but watching these folks who know each other on this very like intimate level, I mean, you learn more playing and improvising with somebody in an hour than you might be talking to them for years. Yeah. And watching those folks meet in person, and just the way the energy, the love, like, oh my God, it's incredible. And just watching this like unifying power of hip hop, of freestyle rap, of watching people learn how to trust themselves, watching them to learn to trust, like, essentially, like, some of my weeknight groups, like I think of them as crews, because like folks have found each other, love engaging and building with each other, and so that class stays full. And it's those folks who have decided and elected to just continue going hard with one another, because I don't know if I don't know if that's like the perception is like we're a crew. I don't know, but that's how I see it. Just the rapport is so tight, and folks are just advancing in such an incredible way, and in their own individual ways, developing or honing styles. Like, we're beyond just technique learning and being comfortable expressing. We are taking colors and textures, and there are folks painting with them. You know what I'm saying? Everyone from Broadway stars to PhDs to artists, salespeople, teachers, like customer service reps, like full-blown, I'm a rapper, I want to rap, I'm songwriters, like everything to just like, hey, I'm interested and I think this is cool, I'm an accountant, or I'm just whomever, like, who is interested and like, can I try this? Yeah, please do engage in this self-awareness, this beautiful self-awareness tool. Sometimes the rhyme knows before we know, and it's helpful. And sometimes we do things that are doper than we realize, and having other folks reflect an individual's light back is so powerful. Like, it's one thing to be a facilitator or the person creating the structure in the space doing it, but building into the culture the ability for other folks to do that with each other. It's just like, there's so many people that I build with, and I could shout them out by name, but I feel like they wouldn't like that, so I'm not going to do it. Like, and I look at them and I go, the day you realize how dope you are, oh my God, the world better look out. Ooh. And I have more than 2 hands worth of people that I could easily, without any flinch, with the utmost supreme confidence, say that about, where it's like, yo, you are so dope and you don't even realize it. Don't worry, You will, and I'm gonna be here when you do. And I'm gonna be the loudest person in your corner because I saw that shit the whole time. And now you see it. Like,
but here's what's so beautiful, and like I get to like this is gonna be such a fun way to like bring this all full circle, and like let me do this to you. Like you started by talking about what you saw John Baptiste do with the show, which is like creating an energy and an intention and inviting people to step into it. And so like it is awesome, and I've been an extraordinary beneficiary of the structure and the programming that you have created. And like Lest It Go Unknown, like a lot of my songs started as homework for this class, and you fucking know it because you watched me perform it as a 16 and then find a new beat and then flesh it out and then try it again and then go record it and put that shit out in the world. So like that piece would be enough.
And I am so proud of you. So proud of you, bro. Like watching your journey, like it has been so exciting and so invigorating, and it is like I hope that you can feel how loudly I'm cheering for you.
You know I love you, and you know I feel it. That's
too,
why we're talking, man. but this is the piece that's important for me to share with you. Like the shit that is happening is not by accident. The fact that community is forming is not by accident. The fact that people are finding themselves is not by accident. The fact that it feels safe is not by accident. And so like what's so dope, and again, like this goes into the context of all performance, because as a teacher in this context, you are performing. It's not that you're performing something other than self, but you are performing self. You are becoming like the embodied version of these values that you clearly live and espouse and believe in without dictating what it needs to look like. And like that fucking formula, whether it's for a show, whether it's for a class, whether it's for your job, whether it's for your family, whether it's for a relationship, it does not fucking matter.
Yeah.
Like if we can be with our intentions and be clear in what we want to create and bring energy to it and like bless it and give grace to it, and then have the willingness and the humility to step back and allow other people to step into that light and then see what they do and celebrate them for what they do. Like if there was a shorter way to say it, I would have, but like whatever the fuck that is, like, bro, that's your gift. It's your gift. And like, like this is not intended to become an ad for BS, but if you're not in his orbit, you're fucking up. you should go do that. If you're like, man, I wish I had more creativity. I wish I had more play. I wish I had more fun. I wish I had more community. I wish I had more life. Stop looking. Go talk to him. It's a good idea.
TrustBS.com, trustbs@gmail.com.
That one. Send him an email. Send him a note. You won't regret it.
Please do. Or if you just want to nerd out, I mean, if you've been listening this long, you know I'm a big old nerd.
So wait. Let me tell the story of how this all started.
Go ahead.
This is important, right? So you started with FLS, or you didn't start with FLS, but you were connected to FLS. You moved adjacent to it. I took an FLS class. I think it was their first online attempt. So this was August of 2020.
Okay.
You were one of the facilitators, not mine, but you were in the room. And like that weekend was the most joyous, playful, silly, enriching, like, and yes, like we
shout out to FLS Plus.
100%. I have so much fucking love for every single one of those human beings.
Amen.
And like including Lynn, but beyond so much further than Lynn. Like I know he's the guy, I get it, but like, oh, there's so much treasure in the humans that are in there. But left with this question of like, now what do I do? And so like I found ciphers, I continue to rap, I continue to look for things, but eventually like I sent you an email and I said like the idea of battle rapping doesn't feel right because I don't want to use this art form in a way that is negative or hateful. So can we get on a call and talk about what it would to rap love, or to love battle, or compliment someone so aggressively that their heart would shatter.
I believe those were your exact words.
and you were just like, yep. let's do it. And that was that. And I don't even know how long ago that was, but all is to say, like, the space that is created is one that invites questions. It invites curiosity, and it is a space where you can really, really play. Not like follow the rules and go through a structure of play, not like allot 20 minutes of time and give yourself a tiny hit of dopamine. Like, you can fucking swing on the jungle gym like you haven't in years. And so I cannot recommend highly enough that if you are feeling a need for that in your life, call this man. Do it.
You're making me verklempt.
I love you, brother. So much. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your time. And I'll be rapping with you soon.
Oh, I can't wait, bro. I can't wait. Thank you again for having me on. I love chopping it up with you, bro. It is always a pleasure, and it's exciting because like I feel like we have a history, a very rich conversation, and I'm excited. This is the first one that we really get to share with people.
Yes.
And that is something that I mean, you can see the smile like that. I mean, I'm really excited, and thank you again for having me. Yeah, I love you, bro. Like this is.
I love you, bro. Thank you so much for joining us today on Stage Dive, and I hope that you enjoyed it. New episodes drop each and every Wednesday. You can find highlights and clips of these conversations on TikTok and Instagram using the handle @StageDivePodcast. If you have any questions for us, want to be featured on the show, or have anything else to send, you can always email us at stagedivepodcast@gmail.com. I have a few quick announcements for all of you listeners out there. I have new music that is releasing all the time. I have a few shows coming up, and I also have what I call the Contemplation Collective. It is a guided visualization that I host most Fridays, unless I'm traveling or some other things have come up. But it's a really wonderful space that we create. It is intended for anyone who wants to join. It is completely free, and it's really just an opportunity for you to take 15 to 20 minutes, unplug from life for a second, and just get connected to your breathing, and to hopefully go on a little bit of a journey that makes you feel calm, peaceful, and centered. If you want to learn about more of any of those things, you can go to www.jackdawkinsraps.com/linktree, LINKTREE. This is Jack Dawkins, and no matter how you're performing in the world today, I want you to know that you are loved. Take care.